I left DC, happy Friday, everybody. I left DC like 4 years ago. What's been going on? Everything good, quiet? Healthcare's all taken care of? Yeah, thank you so much for making certain that that happened. God, Philip, what a great discussion. And I'd like to take that discussion, build on top of it to healthcare. And what are we actually doing with these solutions? It warms my heart to see that we're all working on the same thing. So either we're all going in the wrong direction together or we're all heading in the right direction together. So let's just talk about, well, this is me, this is my proof of life. I will share with you, I love this topic. The topic being, how do we take technology and improve healthcare across the globe? Just simple as that. Feels easy. There's been a couple of hurdles along the way. But I want to share with everyone what it is that we're solving for. Right, so we're all going to do a lot of good work. But what is it that we're actually working towards? And this is it. If you learn nothing, if you remember nothing else today, please take this home with you. The triple aim. Doesn't matter if you're in pharma, med devices, wherever you fall in healthcare or life sciences, we're all trying to do three things together. Number one, better quality care. Right? It seems so intuitive. So intuitive. Better quality care at a better cost. And then we're really now trying to manage our populations. Right? That population, for us is 330 million in the US. When I head over to Finland, it's a couple million. Right? Nonetheless, everyone's trying to manage their populations better. And if at all possible, and this is we all love technology, it appears not everybody loves it. We're killing our clinicians. The physician community is burned out. They're like, we've had enough. And I think we're about to lose a lot just on this note alone. So if we can make the clinical experience better, so I ask anyone in the biz, if you're going to deliver something into the world, can you make it easier for the clinicians? I meet with life sciences and they're like, hey, what do we need to do to make our drug easier for clinicians? Easier to administer, easier to deliver, easier to get in contact with the company, easier, right? 42 steps to get a drug. As a clinician, I got to tell you, I'm like, ugh, which one has 2 steps? So again, user interface, user experience. All right, so what is the gap? What is the gap in healthcare today? I just want to make it easy. The gap is about providers. There's not enough. There won't be enough. There's not more coming. So I feel like I came out of 20 years in the military. There's nobody coming to help us, right? So I want to lay down the groundwork for technology to save us in this industry. Funding, there's no more money. We're out of money. I'll give you the quick, fast, dirty number. U.S. spends 2.2 trillion, 2.8 trillion. It doesn't really matter after dollars in for healthcare. And that's approximately, right, pressing against the border of 20% gross domestic product. And you're like, oh my goodness, it's Friday morning, the lights are out, I haven't had enough coffee, I do not want to talk about the economics of healthcare. I'm with you. I just want you to know that 20% is this magic number that causes implosion wherever it goes. So when Russia gets to 20% of GDP for healthcare, they start to collapse. When GM gets to 20% of its spending for healthcare for its retirees, they have to tap out. So 20% is a big deal. Why do you think we all wake up every morning seeing healthcare in the news every day? I'm certain that our government cares about our care, but they can't pay any more money. And then the final part is the actual care. We would love to deliver great quality care to everyone, and I thought Philip did a nice job. He just explained it. We're not, right? And it's not that clinicians are bad people. They're just humans still, right? There's still bias built into everything. There's still, I had a good day, bad day, right? And I want to make sure that I deliver quality care. But if you look at the numbers, we're probably missing the boat when 45% of initial cancer treatments have to be changed. And so just throwing one statistic out, not trying to overwhelm, but 45, your loved one, somewhere, if they develop cancer will have to have their cancer treatment changed. You're like, hey, wouldn't it have been cool if you did it right the first time? Like, we'll take that next time, right? So just quality of care. So providers, funding, and quality of care. And we'll talk about what I think is going to be the bridge, but hint, hint, I think it's technology. All right, so this is what we're facing with in 2017. This is the state of healthcare. How can I take an $8 trillion industry globally and summarize it in 3 easy statements? But it's aging populations, new care models, and new technologies. This is it. This is how we are all spending our days, nights, weeks trying to solve. Because here it is. If you're born today, you've got a pretty good chance of going the distance. Right? And that distance is a lot longer than it used to be. Right? What was it, the Tudors? People were living to like, 18, 20. Japan is being crushed under its aging population. People just won't die in the world anymore. Right? Like, this is really causing a problem. Now, it's good if it's you. You're like, hey, I don't want to die. But in a population sense, so real quickly, a summary of 500 years, and technology has been pushing healthcare since its inception. Because for many, many discussions, people are like, healthcare is just so far behind technology. I'm not going to disagree with that. There's reasons for that, but I do want to give a little shout out. Technology has changed healthcare since its inception, well, at least since we stopped looking into the heavens and began to look inward. So anatomy and physiology, microscope, a substructure, anesthesia. If anybody needs a colonoscopy, you'll be thankful for this. If you need an upper endoscopy, you'll be thankful. If you need your knee repaired, you'll be thankful. I say that because I used to teach Japanese residents south of Tokyo, and no anesthesia for any upper or lower endoscopies. So yes, they are much tougher people, without a shadow of a doubt. Antimicrobials, right? I mean, we all just take this. You go to your physician. This is inappropriate. You go to your physician today. You're like, I have a sneeze, a cough. They're like, here's your Z-Pack, right? Like, we'll just cover you. Like, here's some Levaquin. Oh my goodness. But I come out of the military. The true enemy was gonorrhea on the battlefield and overseas. So, imaging. You cannot walk into a facility without getting image taken, right? So this is wonderful. I work for a delightful company that sells storage, and the storage teams are like, more images, like more storage, wonderful. But what do we do with all the images? The one on the left is, I'm not sure if it's a diagnostic or a treatment X-ray. Just getting buzzed with radiology. All right, so what has this all led to? We're gonna live longer, all right? So you're like, this is good. Like, I'm happy about this. Now, these are the numbers for the US. I gotta tell you, Sweden is up in the 80, for women, it's up in the 83, 84, 85. Japan, Okinawa, you're up at 86, 87. So in the US, right, so I wanna share with you what that tsunami of aging is. I work with a team, they are completely devoted to helping governments support their aging populations. Right? So it's not really a healthcare issue. It's like saying being pregnant is a healthcare issue, right? It's offensive, but someone still has to address it, and some team has to address it. Healthcare has taken on aging to a large degree. Every day in America, 10,000 people will reach the age of 65. Oh my goodness, right? It's an amazing amount. And I have to say, we're not doing it gracefully. You'll see this is an additive problem. We're not doing this gracefully. Now, no one's doing it gracefully. I want to be clear. Kim in Australia, right? They're working your way up. Mexico. I heard on NPR the other morning, Mexico had a rate of 63% of type 2 diabetes, which is caused from obesity, in the country in adults over 45 or something. Like, it was like, what? Like, how can you, like, the whole, I used to work in, we were talking this morning, I used to work in Western Kenya. It was during the HIV crisis. During that time, the entire age group of 18 to 35 sort of diminished. I mean, just gone. This impending healthcare crisis, people aren't dying, they're just getting more and more disease, like racking and stacking the number of diseases. So that number, 171 million, right? I just want to lay the groundwork for what we're trying to solve. better quality care, better cost, better population health. Here's our population. 171 million will have more than one disease, right? So again, I say obesity, but this isn't a fat shaming discussion. This is with obesity comes hypertension, with obesity comes type 2 diabetes, with type 2 diabetes comes diabetic retinopathy, nicely displayed today, comes renal failure, comes amputation, and just comes, a pretty crappy life, right? And I'll tell you what, but with it comes a cost. So this is the US. I'm going to give quick math. 330 million people, approximately so we'll say 300 million for math. We go to 3 trillion a year. We're $10,000 per person in the US. That number means absolutely nothing to anyone in the room. You're like, oh, okay. Like, is that a lot or a little? I don't even know. Average cost of care through the Nordics, $3,400. Average cost of care in the UK, $3,700. I used to be the chairman for NATO clinical informatics, and this was like the one time everybody's like, what do you guys do with all the money? Like, what are you doing with it? I'm like, I don't know. We are ranked number 16 in healthcare, right behind Estonia. I was speaking recently, I'm like, we're behind Estonia. The guy in the front row was like, hey, I'm a physician in Estonia. Like, why you up? I'm like, no, you guys are great. But I mean, who's flying to Estonia for healthcare, right? I mean, so there's something wrong in the system. So here it is. This is your bonus for coming out this morning. Thank you. So you can see the numbers. We're not living long. Women are dying in childbirth in America. Like, what? Like, we have flush toilets. Did we just go back 200 years? Like, women should not be dying during childbirth in America, right? I was just in Havana with their chief medical officer. They have a better childhood infant mortality rate than we do. Right? I mean, something's wrong in the system. But here it is, total life expectancy. So 12% of our life will be spent in poor health. That's not good. Okay, let's do the math. If you're gonna live to 100, you're still spending way too many years not well. So here's my bonus for today, mortality compression. Your goal is to live to, pick an age, you choose, 100, 104. My great aunt was 104. She's like, oh my God, why can't I die? No one's around anymore. So we all have to choose. But go hike Kilimanjaro, come home and die quietly, and don't bother anybody along the way. But that's not what we're doing, right? We are seeking care routinely. And again, I want to make the case, there's not enough money, there's not enough providers, and there's not enough quality care to support the life that many of us look like we're headed into. All right, so thankfully, right, you ready? I'm such an optimist. Thankfully, the country was imploding in 2009. We signed off on almost $1 trillion of money to be infused into the nation. With that, your government, this is really good stuff, took a nice little wedge out, $110 billion, called the High-Tech Act. And out of that, we took another little wedge of $37 billion, a little wedge, $37 billion, and we created a thing called meaningful use of electronic health records. So in 2009, I'm not sure where everybody was in 2009, but you probably had some technology in your life. Your clinician, your physician was handwriting notes, right? So only 17% of American clinicians had an electronic health record in 2009. We gave them free money. I was on the Meaningful Use Policy Committee. We're like, all you have to do is call this toll-free number, just say you bought an electronic health record and we'll give you $48,000. Even with that, we couldn't give all the money away. We couldn't give all the money away, just to give you a sense on where the clinical community thought about electronic health records. All right, so we have this aging population that's getting sicker, that's less healthy, but not dying, okay? So boom. In that now, it's the New England Journal of Medicine discussing about clinicians in the world. There's not enough, right? So part of that is the aging population, supply and demand. Part of it is the people that were physicians are now getting old too, and they're not. My mother's a nurse. She's 75. She hates when I say that. She's 75. She just retired last month from nursing 4 days a week. You can see on the right, there will be no one to come take care of her. There's no nurses behind her, right? So again, the gap. And this I never know what to do with. So I have patients that walk in, I have 12 minutes to see them, and they're like, I want to show you my Fitbit data from the last 6 months. 4 months ago, I only ran 3.2 miles, not 6.4. Do you think that's going to affect anything? I'm like, oh my God. Do you wear your seatbelt? Do you have a gun at home? What's your blood pressure rate? I mean, I have a whole other agenda, and the type A's are worried about. I mean, right, they're not the ones we're worried about, but all new data, again, for all the entrepreneurs in the group, recently reported $15 billion invested in Silicon Valley for healthcare startups. Right, so everybody's thinking this. Everybody's got a brother and a brother-in-law, and I coded something, and isn't this a good idea? I speak at all the VC like I love all this. Nobody's sure what to do with it right now. Right, we got to figure it out. But it's producing an inordinate amount of data, So, and then someone lowered the price of sequencing, right? Which is killing. No, but it's a lot of data. This is my favorite, more than sites like YouTube. I know we've all been down the YouTube wormhole together. I mean, more data than that? Yes, right? Oh my goodness. So we've got all this clinical data on an aging population that's not as healthy as we would like to see them. Now, we have all this new technology creating data, just generating data, shirts that capture your respiratory rate. Okay. And now we're sequencing, right? Tumor sequencing, just so you know, tumor sequencing, you go into the operating room, you have your tumor cut out, it goes to the sequencing machine to do a full human sequencing, still not at the cost, but quickly getting there. All right, so here's the data sets. Right, so again, I as a physician am faced with this data set from you when you walk into the office. And I have to tell you, I devoted many, many years implementing an electronic health record throughout the whole globe. And at the end of it, exhausted, I was like, oh, we're done. Like, now we got it all. And then all of a sudden, sequencing becomes cheap. And we're like, okay, what are you going to do with the sequencing data? No one knows. And then really the one that's challenged us is it's the exogenous data. Right? So this comes out of Health Affairs, 2014, 10, 30. We're like, oh no, 60%. So what is exogenous data? Social determinants. Where you live. Do you have food available to you? Turns out your zip code and your credit score probably relate more to your length of life than any two numbers, right? New social determinant. Do you have Wi-Fi access as a patient? Right? So that will affect your health. Right? So this social determinant, this is a whole new world. How many steps do you take a day, right? I think is the classic, right? Because we all have a Fitbit. All right, aging population, more chronic diseases, more technology just sort of forcing data at us that we're just not sure what to do with or how to ingest it. And in the middle of all that, like, oh my God, please stop. The medical world continues to publish, right? Upwards of 1 million articles by 2020. Right, so it's too much. So fortunately for me, when I was a resident, I was told to read 1 article a day, and I would be able to keep up with medicine. So that's me. I read 1 article a day for 3 days, fell promptly to sleep, and every night go to bed guilty with the stack of New England Journal, British Medical Journal, JAMA, the whole, right? So just impossible for me as a clinician, and remember, there's less of me now to keep up with. And then the final problem is this desire, this need for new care models. 100 years ago, we used to have a chief electricity officer in each organization. So electricity used to come in from the water wheel. It would go into the center of the room. Everybody would use it to mill, to grind, and it all worked. And everybody was happy with it. And they're like, don't mess with my water wheel. And then we brought electricity in, and we couldn't keep it running, and it was down and brown. It's like, what? Right? And they're like, but we don't understand. It's in the middle of the room again, but it doesn't work all the time, right? It wasn't until we got new models of electricity, put it in around the room, bring it into people's homes, that we were actually able to make a difference with it. So currently, in our current state, in 2017, we're taking the electronic health record, we're forcing it into an old model. No one's happy about it because we just like to write a little note, but now we got to do all this other stuff for an electronic health record. So the goal is this, and this is where we all come in together, we just need new models, right? So we need new models of care, but we need new models to, what do we do with the what do we do with the technology? The classic is you all Skype your friends, your family, and nobody's Skyping with their physician. It just seems so obvious. No one's taking a picture of their mole or their rash and sending it to their dermatologist, right? Wouldn't that just be so much easier than having to go in and park and wait, and Uber, and whatever there is technology that's so obvious that we just haven't adopted yet. This is like state of the art in healthcare. ZocDoc, like, I can mobily make an appointment. It doesn't connect to anything. It's a person at the other end trying to then fit you in and calling it, but you like it. It's mobile. This is, where healthcare is delivered in your life flow seems to make sense. And then I just share with you, new care model, repurposing the Japanese postmen who are doing nothing because no one's sending mail, educating them on technology, educating them on healthcare, and sending them out every day to see patients, aging patients, to make sure they're doing well every day. Right? I mean, just a new model, and they didn't invent this. This came out of the UK. They just perfected it. And then, of course, telemedicine. This is my favorite. They went out of business. They were way too ahead of their time, but it was a box that dropped into anywhere in the world. You would have telemedicine with the doctor, automatically prescribe pills. A door would slide out with the pills in it. You'd take an otoscope, put it in your ear, and stethoscope on your heart, and you would get a full exam anywhere in the globe. But really what we all want to be taken care of as individuals, but our societies as citizens want to take care of us as a population. So that's a lot of data for the country. And here's how we had typically sort of looked at it, do a dashboard, but nothing sexy about a dashboard anymore. And quite honestly, dashboards of who has diabetes in your population. So for me in the military, it was who had diabetes in the population. I didn't know that till 90 days after the event, right? So good, but not super good. Really, the sexy is I need to predict the disease. I need to predict disease. I need to know who's going to get disease in the population. Kind of minority report. So down south of here in Roanoke, Virginia, at Carilion Hospital, ran predictive models using natural language processing, pulled structured and unstructured data out of the electronic health record, and predicted whose heart in that population was going to putz out in the next 12 to 18 months. That's a medical term, putz out. So if your heart pumps at 100%, who's going to go down to 25%? Because then your lungs fill up with fluid, your legs fill up with fluid. It's a horrible, very expensive, costs a lot to society, costs a lot to the community, costs a lot to the healthcare system. And my favorite, you take a picture of it, go into an intensive care unit, see all that data coming off of all those different machines. We can now connect it all in real time, not even sort of take it off and cache it, but real time predict. So in Toronto, it's sick kids. It's actually called Sick Kids in Toronto Hospital, big letters, Sick Kids. We can look at neonatal intensive care babies and predict who's going to crash, another medical term, crash, in the next 12 to 18 hours. Right? So again, that predictive model. It's still not enough to support all of the data though. Right? So I want to make the case for a new form of computing. How do you take all that medical literature, all of your guidelines, all of your institutional secret sauce, right? Georgetown has a secret sauce of knowledge in its medical community, and then take that clinical, the genomic, exogenous data, right? Just the old days of programming, and I thought Philip explained it perfectly. You can no longer program to all of that. And then the computing power that's needed for that is no longer an on-prem computing, right? It's got to be cloud-based computing. So cognitive computing, I believe, is that missing piece, was going to fill in the gap. Now, IBM, I'm going to give a brief history of our time in how we got into cognitive computing, but we're all in, right? So what's the future look like for healthcare? What's going to solve healthcare? It's going to be cognitive computing. At its core, it understands, it reasons, and it learns. It understands, it reasons, it learns, and it interacts. So for healthcare, what do I love? It has infinite capability, right? So I can't read all the articles ever published every year. I can't know the entire genomic sequencing of every patient. I can't know all of their exogenous data, how many steps they took, where they I can't know all of that, right? And then, quite honestly, and I like to think I deliver care unbiased, but I don't, right? I mean, the data proves I don't deliver care unbiased. So cognitive computing is unbiased, unlimited, and then it seeks, as a physician, I'm trained to seek pattern recognition. But sadly, even when I'm hyper-caffeinated, I can only pull out, I can only remember 5 or 6 data points to create a conclusion. Cognitive computing, infinite capability for that. Infinite capability. But I still, I give compassion, I have guidance, I have experience. This is why I believe the future will be cognitive computing in healthcare. Philip mentioned, we programmed a big computer to play chess. Gary Kasparov, this was our 75-year anniversary. Cool, we won. And then we said, hey, what about answering natural language? Right, so a bunch of researchers were upstate New York where our research facility is. They saw everybody from the restaurant move to the bar to watch Jeopardy. They didn't know what Jeopardy was because they don't watch TV. They quickly realized that there were some smart guys playing a game show. Could we create a computer to play the game show? Turns out real language is real hard. You remember when you were in high school and you tried to talk to your parents and they had no idea what you were saying. You were like, it was the same language, but was it really? So here it is. In honor of Philip, $400, an early name for Google was this type of massage. Oh, this is a good history. This is a good trivia. No, Philip, you're not allowed to answer. Nobody? Yes, sir. Yeah, you are correct, sir. The answer is back rub, but you have to answer it in the form of a question. What is back rub? Yes. So to win at Jeopardy, and I'll just use this as an example, you have to understand really just a broad set of language. You have to be quick. You have to be precise. Remember, if you get the answer wrong, you lose points. My favorite, Treasury Secretary Chase just submitted this to me. Guess what? This time I'm accepting it, right? For anybody who's taken Civil War history, it was a resignation. I talked to my 14-year-old niece, and she's like, why would they not accept their Facebook request? Like, why? Right, so again, remember, the nose smells, the feet run, but the feet can also smell and the nose can also run. But this has been the challenge in natural language processing for so many years. So here's where we started 2007, down on the left. Like, this is big computer systems from IBM. This is the best we could do. Up on the right is grand champions in health. I mean, you can see. I mean, we've watched the game before. Like, they're fast, they're quick, they're smart. And this is where, ultimately, we decided in 2007 to get to playing Jeopardy. So the rest is history. We won. If you get a chance to Google it, you can watch the video. It's fun. The front row is all the researchers, and they're panicked because Watson, to Philip's point earlier, didn't understand the basics of QWERTY keyboard. Didn't make sense, wasn't winning. And then the executives in the back are like, oh, it's going to be fine, don't worry. So thankfully, it was fine. But who calls 2 minutes after this? The medical community. Right? They're like, hey, that's how our doctors think. That's a differential diagnosis at the bottom. And we ding in and write a diagnosis and do a workup and a treatment plan based upon that differential diagnosis. So it's a lot of medicine. You got know a lot of stuff to practice medicine. For Jeopardy, all we had to do was train Watson in 50 years of Jeopardy questions and answers. Watson interacted and came back and said, I need a little more info. Then we gave Watson all of Wikipedia. Closed system, and that was enough to win the game. Now, again, that was just simple answer, right? Speech to text, not really now, 6 years later, 7 years later, this is nothing, right, for what we're able to do today. Med school, Watson will be taking his boards out of the Cleveland Clinic. But, questions like 63-year-old patient is sent to the neurologist with a clinical picture of resting tremor. Like, I just had a research in internal medicine. I was like, resting tremor, Parkinson's. I'm going to get one right. You got to go to the testing center now. So I'm at the testing center. I'm like all excited. Parkinson's disease. But it turns out that was a step along the journey to the answer. It was where does Parkinson's hit? And it's a substantia nigra. which looks like a black steak in the midbrain, but when that is messed up, that's where we get our Parkinson's. And so there's a lot of thought that goes into diagnosing a patient and treating a patient. So we started, this is what Watson looks at, but ultimately, here's the journey just to get to that one simple, actually, it's a simple question. But where to start? Start with cancer. Let's start with the world's biggest problems. So with Memorial Sloan Kettering, we took Watson to train Watson for cancer. We started with, you got to start somewhere, started with cancer, got to start somewhere within cancer. We started with solid organ tumors, and those were colorectal, lung, and breast. So Watson reads the electronic health record, understands the patient. We'll ask a question or two like, hey, do we have a lab on this or this? And then Watson goes and reads 2 million pages of text. Boom, and in under 3 seconds, reads it and makes a recommendation. This is what I recommend for this patient for the best treatment, and here's why. We're not ready for the black box yet. I agree with Philip. There's transparency. So if you want to know why Watson's recommending, you can click through to the source journal. And then you as a physician can say, oh, I agree with that, or I did not know. Typically what happens now is people are like, I didn't know that journal came out. I didn't know there was a new study. Here's my favorite. Let's flatten the world. Let's make the world a better place. In Manipal, India, patients that are seen for cancer are now getting the same care that they would get if they were flown to Memorial Sloan Kettering. Patients in China, in rural Thailand, are getting the same care that they would be getting if they went to Memorial Sloan Kettering in New York City. It's very exciting to me. And we've expanded out to, I think we're up to 8 cancers. And now that we got the initial training, I didn't say coding, I didn't say programming, training of Watson, we're doing 1 cancer a month, and we'll have approximately 90% of cancers done by the end of next year. My favorite child, Watson will read the electronic health record and then goes over to a data source that's readily open to all of us, clinicaltrials.gov, but will match patients. So for life science, this is amazing, right? So one of the problems in pharma is the inability to fill trials to get patients enrolled, so to move medicine forward. And then little secret for everybody in the room, if you're in a trial, you do better. So it's a win-win-win. Mayo Clinics now, every single patient who comes in with breast cancer is getting matched. They went in from hand jamming 2 patients a month, now they're up to 6, 8 patients a month in under 30 seconds versus 80 minutes a patient. Every hospital's got one of these. Illumina, they own 90% of the market. We take the VCF file, the variant control file. Watson reads it, sees the patterns, and then matches it to all of the published data on that cancer. Again, tumor sequencing, take the VCF file, match it to all, read all of the information on that cancer available in the world. 60 Minutes did a nice little special on this if you get a chance down in UNC. And then I won't mention images, but yes, we want to be able to read the images. And I'm going to go back to why for us there's a shortage of providers, there's a shortage of radiologists, and radiologists are burning out on thousands of CT images. Let's take off the normal, have them signed off, and let the radiologists get back to work on the really tough images. This year, I'll just share with everybody, this year we're going to go live with a solution for echo ultrasound of the heart, echocardiograph. My new favorite, again, this is machine learning. We talked about it, but in a partnership with Medtronic, we can now take a picture of your meal, tell you how many carbs, how much protein, and then really how much insulin you should be giving yourself for that meal. So you can feel it, we're getting close to that. We're getting close to the automatic pancreas, right? And I say that, so in type 1 diabetes, your pancreas has given up, doesn't produce insulin anymore. You wear a pump, and we're getting close. And then final note, so what do you do with cognitive computing? What's the future? On the left, one of my favorites, ID Avatar, that's Sophie. Sophie is connected to all of the different APIs, application programming interfaces, all the capabilities of Watson in today's world. And one of those is she can hear me, so if I sound stressed, she can see me. And during the normal workday, she's like, Michael, you look terrible. What's the matter? I'm like, Sophie, I'm working from home. I just look disheveled. But Sophie's being used for veterans, right? Because there's not, again, what's the gap? There's not enough providers. So let's use technology to make certain that our veterans are healthy and we can stop 2-a-day suicides. And then final, that's Pepper, Dr. Pepper. Pepper using cognitive computing will greet you in the morning, make certain that you take your morning pills. Pepper looks at each pill as it's in your mouth to make sure you have the blue, the yellow, the red pill. She makes sure that you swallow them, and then she ensures that you're up to date on all of your healthcare steps for the day. Pepper actually does a little dance with a little music. But again, shortage of providers, shortage of care workers. I think we're going to see the coming together of computers and robotics. So, I'm committed to this. I think that health IT is going to save us. It's going to improve quality. It's going to improve efficiency. It's going to improve safety in healthcare. It's going to close the gap of a shortage of providers, our shortage of funding, and our need to improve care. For us, it's Watson Health. But, again, I showed earlier, everyone's working on this. We all believe that this is the future. Technology is going to drive better quality care at a better cost for better population health. So with that, I say thank you. This is my phone number. Please call, text anytime, and shoot me a note. I'm happy to help out. Thank you for your time today. Okay.
Let's get a couple questions from new people. Who hasn't spoken yet?
I'd like the easy questions, if possible.
Easy questions, right here on the left. Oh, you've spoken. Someone who hasn't spoken, please. Right here, up in the middle.
I'm Sam Evelyn. I'm a grad student here at Georgetown. I had a question regarding IBM Watson. So do you currently have teams of clinicians that make corrections to avoid incorrect machine learning?
We do.
Okay, and then my follow-up with that is, does it learn around clinical concepts? Does it look for language and indications, or does it look for what the MD states as that indication?
I don't know if I caught all of that, but I'll go back to the first question and expand out on that. So Watson is trained. If it's trained in clinical care, it needs to be trained by people who deliver care. So yes, the technology is built by non-clinicians, but the actual delivery of its recommendations by clinical clinicians. There was a second part of that that I failed to mention, that I failed to capture.
Okay, that was on, so is it looking for language, or does it look for what the MD states as that's the indication?
You're going to have to refine that last part of the question, because I want to make sure I get that right.
Sure, so if it's like acute kidney disease,
Yeah.
is it the MD stating that this is the specific indication, or is it also look for other symptoms?
Oh, I got it. Thank you. Whew, thanks for your patience with me on that one. So there is, with natural language processing, that is one of the technologies built into Watson, there is the context of disease. So many things go into creating a diagnosis or creating a recommendation. And I'll say one of the recommendations is the patient says they don't want to lose their hair during cancer treatment, right? So that's a context and a concept that has to be brought through. That ultimately needs to have a code behind it. So the physician gets the value of Watson being able to read the entire healthcare record, not just the structured sort of genomic data, but also all of the other things that go into the delivery of healthcare. Again, things like, when I take this cancer treatment, it makes me feel terrible, right? That needs to be brought across as part of my next treatment schedule. So back to my very simple picture of the thousands of things that go on in the background when answering a question. Now, add on all personal preferences. And again, that's all has codes and data sets behind it that are processed through it.
Thank you.
If I didn't answer completely, grab me afterwards.
Hi, my name is Amna Hamza. I don't have a bio background, but I come from a business legal background. So it was a nice talk, and thank
I
you
was told
for...
there'd be no lawyers in here today.
So, no, my question is in relation to the data collection and the data regulation. So, as you mentioned, that your technology will be using data, it will be gathering it. So in relation to where you have to use this data to do further research, and the data strict policy, which will be actually implemented next year in Europe, will make it more restricted and more impossible to share this data. How do you think that will affect what you're doing?
You know, as a global company, we're affected by every country's healthcare data rules. So I'm going to give you a technical answer. We're just keeping it within the sovereign nation that generates that data. Right, so that's our quick, down and dirty answer. Pharmaceutical companies tend to span the globe and are without borders, so some of that data is a little easier for them to move around. And then, you know, in the US, we think of HIPAA as the big controller and privacy for data. So everything we have, you know, the cloud has to be HIPAA compliant, but each country, and again, to your point, and nicely stated, the Europeans they're giving us a run for our money because we just need to, you know, be in compliance with their privacy and security laws. But I think, again, technically the answer is to keep that data in the country. And when we deal with the ministers of health, that's their request for us as well. And then build a system that supports their individual countries' data and security rights, for privacy rights.
Thanks, Dr. Weiner. I think that's the last
Thank you.
question. Thanks.